Hello, everybody. We're back in this next installment of the Irrelevant Podcast. Still going on my kind of divergent route with Robert here. How you doing, man?
Good, good. It's been a while.
Yeah, no, I think it was like 2 weeks or something since the last one.
It's been a little longer than that.
Yeah. Well,
What
either
what was
way,
the last one we did?
the Medieval Ugly Corporate Republic, man.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
which kind of can relate to this episode we're
yeah,
gonna do today.
yeah, a little bit.
So, this is something that I've thought about for a long time. And I still think about to this day. Um, and I'm sure you have too.
Yeah,
Maybe not for as long as me, but like still, think about it a lot now.
yeah.
Um, and well, because like your whole upbringing and heritage is different than mine. But it's the question of: Are we proud to be Americans, being Catholics? And I think that that's a question that I think was kind of subdued a lot, and it was kind of like for Catholics, I think in America after like World War II and all that, leading up to like now, I think there was a lot of kind of like people didn't care as much about like what religion you were anymore.
Hmm.
Um, for both ways, for like whether you're anti-religion or whether you're pro-religion, I feel like people like there was just I don't know. Um, After World War II, there's just a deep sense of like, you know, uh, national pride and like patriotism and like service and duty and there was a real like we were like yeah
We were the heroes.
we were the heroes, yeah, and like we're ushering in like the era of peace, and then that went down in like the late '60s and the
We
'70s with
also
like
fought for democracy.
yeah, and we're gonna get into that, but so like yeah, we fought through like all that, and then like come around like the Vietnam War, and then it got like the spirit of America went like way down.
Yeah,
There like a lot of demoralization, and then come back in the '80s, there was like the surge of nationalism from like Ronald Reagan, and it's like okay, we destroyed communism. Okay, we're the victors again, and all that. But then after that, the '90s was another like you know demoralization and like national pride goes down, and then in the early 2000s, I think that was like the last um kind of era where like the vast majority of Americans, like if you surveyed them and asked them if they were proud to be American, they would say yes.
yeah. With post
Yeah,
9/11.
but yeah, like directly after 9/11, like before the market crash.
Hmm.
Because I think after the market crash, that's like when
Yeah, I think. I mean, I still think that during Obama's presidency, there was still
sure,
a
yeah.
lot of people who were, proud. Like Obama, even though like a lot of people don't really there's a lot of people who like him, a lot of people that don't like him, but like I think people can kind of like most people kind of respect him at least. They say like, oh, he was like a reasonable like president. He wasn't
Or
like bombastic. He wasn't
we
like
even all admit,
senile.
well, which that's not really true, but I at least admit that he was a great speaker. I
Hmm.
mean, I don't like I can't think of
Yeah,
another president where like they're his speeches, like even though I didn't agree with what he's saying, like I could still see he had charisma, like he was like a character,
yeah, yeah,
but like well, but also Obama, like he Obama that shit up, dude, like
yeah. No, but like that's when like movies like White House Down came out.
yeah,
And,
like
like a lot of like the Afghanistan war movies.
even the Batman Begins and all that
Hmm.
is like an allegory for like terror, like the war on terror, and like
Yeah,
why does America have
like
the right
like
to do that?
I mean, we're kind of in right now a like our focus isn't so much on terrorism anymore. I mean, ISIS I think was
We're
kind of
getting out of that,
ISIS was kind of the last like big hoorah. I mean, we are dealing with the Houthis right now, but
yeah.
we don't I don't think really people think about the Houthis as much as they did ISIS.
Well, yeah, ISIS was much more like pop and
Well, ISIS
like
was also like
there's a lot of movies about
scary,
it.
black masks, slitting people's throats on the beaches and stuff. Like
Yeah,
with the Houthis just kind of, bomb random ships going through the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, and Hezbollah, I think, is similar. They
Mhm.
just,
I don't even think we're not. I don't think America has directly struck Hezbollah.
I know
Like,
Israel has, but
yeah,
not America. Yeah.
but anyways, like now America, like I think what we need to focus on now and then get on to the commentary, we need to kind of suss out the zeitgeist of like the American populace. And the problem with that is that right now we're still pretty divided, but we could talk about some of the major different kind of uh I wouldn't say they're individual cultures, but in a sense they are
Mhm.
like different the main like societal like ideological groupings within our society. Like we like for like the two big ones are kind of like your Donald Trump conservatives, and even if they're not really into Donald Trump, they might still be like neoliberal. They might be
I mean,
neocon, and then there's kind of like your more farther leftist type, and those are the two main big groups in America. And there's other smaller groups here and there, but if you and I, we both work in blue collar jobs and we're around kind of regular Americans and we can
yeah,
kind of, you can kind of pick up a feel of like what America is to like
the
the
spirit of
common
America.
American person.
Well, yeah, because when answering the question, are we proud to be American as Catholics? There's a lot of history I have to understand, especially like Catholicism as we understand it from like the early 2000s, like suburban era, was like really diluted. Um, because most of the Catholics, like a lot of people don't understand that big ethnic component of Catholicism because for the vast majority of history in I'm sorry, for the majority of Catholics in America, like most of them came in through like Ellis Island
Yeah.
and they were like German and
Irish,
Irish,
Italian,
Italian, Polish, and
Polish.
all those. Yeah, so like Catholicism was seen as like an ethnic thing,
Hmm.
right? But so the suburbs was actually created for like the WASP, like Anglo type.
My people. Yeah.
Yeah, for like the WASP Anglo types to like
You're
get a
Episcopalian, you're Baptist, you're
Methodists and
yeah.
like all that to like get away from the sort of ethnic like enclaves in the cities
Hmm.
to just live like kind of their own life
Hmm.
and to have like smaller family units,
Hmm.
right? And so Catholicism in America has had like, I mean, obviously has our country has a long history of anti-Catholicism, and I must preface, we're not trying to talk from like the victim mentality. That's not the point.
Well,
Like
here,
we're not whining. That's
mhm.
not what we're
I,
doing.
I think before we get into the history, kind of like the anti-Catholicism America, I think we should talk about now.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Right now, like most people, when it comes to religion, are pretty milk toast or apathetic. Like most people don't really care, or if they are, like if they do believe in God, they're just like, yeah, well, anything goes. Like it's kind of like just as long as you believe in God, that's good enough. Or they'll say,
yeah, I mean, it's
well, my church is just as good as the
just as good.
Catholic Church, and like people aren't really like violently anti-Catholic really
It's
anymore. I mean, in an intellectual sense, like people really reject Catholicism, but there
they
isn't
do even if
the
they don't even really realize
the
it. Yeah,
KKK isn't running around,
no,
beating up Catholics anymore. Like
they
that's
did,
not. Yeah,
but
they did, but
we
as of now, like in the modern, not United States.
no, but I mean, I would argue that like even it's still ingrained in like just the generic American culture
Yeah,
to like kind of view Catholicism as like a like antithetical to the American way of life,
yeah,
right? Because America, like it's founded upon this sort of, and you can see this to in like even today from the descendants of the people that founded America, the kind of Eastern Seaboard WASP types, like it's just about like their idea of like virtues is just like basically this sort of atomized individualism.
work hard.
Yeah, like the Protestant work ethic, and then like these kind of arbitrary like disciplinary standards that like
Yeah,
really
always
in
show up on time. Um, don't be like
Like,
Like,
don't ask for a
yeah,
raise.
like don't ask for a raise, always show up on time, do like
Like,
what is it?
basically never enjoy yourself. Right.
Yeah, it's just kind of like work hard and just follow your boss. Right.
Well, yeah. And so
Like basically it's like another thing, in America we don't have a siesta culture. You know what I mean?
we don't, because
There's
I think,
not, it's not, here at work your lunch break is 30 minutes and you just stare at a phone and you look at your other coworkers. But in other countries, you can actually go home and
yeah.
have a 3 hour. I think in Italy it's like part of the culture that for certain jobs you can go home and spend time with your family 3 hours in the middle of the day and you come back and you're not even really eating for the whole 3 hours. You're just spending time with your family.
Yeah, because
That's
that's
and
what's
that
more
and
important.
that's
Yeah.
and that's as someone who did not grow up Catholic and is now in the Catholic sphere.
Yeah.
That's something that's really surprising to me. Like the first mass I went to, after mass they had a giant celebration.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
American culture, we don't. Maybe we used to do that, but we definitely don't do that now. And
Yeah,
that's something.
I'm sure
That's
there
something
was.
that
Yeah.
Catholics still do. Is they still believe in recreation and celebration.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. Whereas, like, in the sort of average American culture, it's just like like after you go to church, it's just like, yeah, just move on with the rest of your life,
Yeah,
with the
just go
rest of your
home, watch football,
watch football or just
or
like,
go to work.
right, which watching football and going to work, which are integral parts of the sort of American lifestyle, aren't bad in and of themselves. I mean, oh, I like to watch football from time to time.
Yeah,
I work, because work is just, I mean, it's part of life.
yeah.
But like, it's this sort of like I forget the book that the guy wrote. Jay Dyer was talking about it, explaining how America, like, and the American person has this sort of like it's this double-edged sword of like this hyper like atomized individualism uh, lends itself well to like really really impressive entrepreneurship,
Mm-hmm.
right, and innovation
Mm-hmm.
and like pioneers and whatnot.
Yeah.
But like on the other hand, like man needs you know man needs company. Like man can't just you can't just be on the grindstone all the
Mm-hmm.
time. Like we have a spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not just matter. We're not just machines,
Mm-hmm.
right? And man can't be treated like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could see the effects of that
And
now, you know.
yeah.
But so yeah, and it's just like the actual like when it comes to me, sort of when I'm kind of thinking into myself, like when I'm doing value judgments of like, do I like this? Do I not? Am I pro or am I con? Like I always think of it as like I'm a Catholic first,
Yeah.
right? And any other thing is secondary to that. But so when thinking about American values, quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote, like when I really think about it, like what American values really line up with what I personally value?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Or
what do
what?
you think?
Or like not so much about, like, yeah, we as individuals, personally value Catholic values. But the thing is like those are the values, if that makes sense. Like Catholic values are the
Yeah,
values.
they are the values that
Yeah, and
civilization
and
should be.
so
Yeah.
I think now's a good time to kind of talk about how American society contradicts with Catholic values.
Well, yeah, and
I think a big one, abortion.
yeah.
That's
Are you
that's
talking
very
about
common.
historically or are you talking about now?
Historically and now.
Yeah, abortion and also things like private education. A
Hmm.
lot of that was like the Catholics and the Jews too. A big reason they were hated for a long time in America, well, and they still are, is because like the Masons and like the elites in the Eastern Seaboard like were violently opposed to private education
Hmm.
because like obviously it's harder to control people if they're going to different schools separate. Like because obviously I mean they want things to be homogenized. I mean that's understandable, but like like because Catholicism you have to ultimately be loyal to the Pope.
Hmm.
Like it was kind of seen, and this was in Britain
You're
too.
subverting America.
Yeah, like you're subverting America. Like, oh, you're not loyal to the state; you're loyal to the Pope,
Mhm.
right? So that's
Remember
why there was a
that
big contention.
political cartoon we saw where it was the alligators and it had like
Yeah, like
the
their
was
mouths
it
are
miter?
the bishop's
The
miters. Yeah,
bishop's miter and it was coming out of the
they're
water
coming out of the
and
water. Yeah,
it's coming to like attack like the wasp American children.
yeah,
That was kind of funny, you know.
yeah. It's like like
It
beware
it
the spirit, the ghost of
in
Catholicism and stuff like that.
reality it's just some Italian guy inviting you to like his house to eat spaghetti and like hang out for 3 hours.
Well, yeah, because that's a big part of Catholicism that people don't understand because they think that Catholicism is being like,
They,
like you're literally some like starved, like pale, like ugly dude who hasn't gotten any sunlight because he's trying so hard to like resist the urges that like the natural urge. But it's like, guys, like that is like
yeah, no,
literally like the
like
furthest thing from Catholicism.
you know, like a lot of my friends, you know, who aren't particularly religious and are
Yeah.
very American, like they pride themselves on being American.
And
Um,
another interesting thing
wait,
is, sorry, yeah,
before,
sorry.
you know, I was talking about, you know, the fact that I'm getting married, and they're like, man, when you get married, like when you have sex, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this,
Oh
and I'm
man,
like, he's like, well, you're Catholic, you can't do those things. I'm like.
who told you
Where,
that? Yeah, like
where, like, first of all, who told you that? Second of all, where did you learn that? And that's not Catholicism. That's pure, like, that's Puritan. Puritans are, there's a good segue into the Puritans. The big divide between us as Catholics and the rest of American society is pretty much, in a large part, descended from the Puritans. That's where we get wokeness from.
yeah, the Puritans is where we get wokeness from. Like the Quakers in Pennsylvania is like kind of where we get this sort of like casualness
Yeah, like, I
from,
need to shake your
like
hand.
shake
That's a very
hands,
American thing.
like shaking hands and like just like a complete disregard for like formality,
Yeah, like
like just
no bowing.
no bowing, like you can just wear like a t-shirt and shorts,
Yeah.
like a lot of that, and like the suburban culture kind of was birthed out of, not exclusively, but a lot of it from the Quaker
Mhm.
culture of like tolerance and just like no distinctions
Yeah,
of
and
hierarchy at
that's
all.
another thing, especially
um
nowadays, is like I think your average person, the average the average American, you know, when they're not Catholic, when you tell them that you're Catholic, like they'll say like they won't necessarily be like violently opposed to Catholicism, but they'll be like, "Man, I don't know, like all these priests were touching kids and all this other stuff," and that's really what they focus on. They focus on, you know, like very small, like very particular. I guess it has to do with the news. Like I guess
well, yeah,
most
no, and
and a
that's
lot of Americans that's
yeah.
what they say because like when a lot of times when I tell people you know, like, oh, I go to a Catholic church, like, oh man, like, does the priest does he touch kids? You realize the priest isn't perfect. I'm
Well,
like,
yeah, first of all, you shouldn't joke about that. That is
yeah,
not funny.
yeah, and like,
And then
but this is what most average Americans think when they think of Catholicism.
there's a lot of psyops with that. We're not trying to downplay that that stuff didn't happen. It obviously did, and
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, like, I mean, Taylor Marshall actually had a good thing to say about that, where he's like, how can you reconcile like being Catholic and being attached, quote unquote, to like all of this like scandal? Is he's like, well, the Catholic Church is like literally the oldest institution, or like one of, if not the oldest institutions in the whole world. And
mm.
it's like you're never going to go through cycles of highs
Well,
and lows. So like it's just a part, like it's just kind of something that you have to like just own up to and accept and just try to live your life to the
and
best, you know.
and you know the thing is like, um, the church is made up of imperfect people, but you
But
know,
yeah, we can't get sidetracked too
I
much on that.
I
Yeah.
know another thing is you know just one little small thing is,
Right.
you know, I've not grown up Catholic. I was basically taught that Catholics are, you know, this and that, and I should never be Catholic, and that there's it's evil, and they have to wear clothes when they have sex, and all this other, and
Oh man.
they you know, Catholics do this and this, and they believe that all these weird things that are antithetical to like American and Protestant
Mhm.
culture. You know, the thing is, like when you talk to a priest, it's like yeah, there's all these issues in the Catholic Church, but like most of the priests that you interact with like genuinely do care about you.
Mhm.
Like they're you don't even if you don't really know them, they go out of their way to help you out a lot of the times.
Well, yeah, especially like at the lower level, like in like parish priests,
Hmm.
I think there's a larger proportion of you know, priests that are men of goodwill and trying to fight the good fight. But then I think the higher you go, the less proportion it is
Yeah,
of like the good people.
yeah,
But what I was saying is like we're not coming from this like when we're tackling this question, right? We're not coming at it from this sort of left wing like evil, mean, evil, ugly corporate Republican
yeah.
man America. Like that's not. I mean, that kind of
That has
is.
elements of truth in it, but
It
like
absolutely
it's just not
does.
the way that
Yes.
we look at it.
Well, right, but then also like people might think like guys like you and I would be the most like patriotic flag waving, God bless America singing patriots like ever. But I
Yeah,
mean,
like
it's just there's just, and I know our kind of takes are different, but they kind of come to the same
yeah,
point. Like they like it's like the biggest reason why like I can't bring myself to say that I'm proud to be American to answer the question is just because our country isn't founded on Catholicism.
it's not.
And like it's actually founded on anti-Catholicism when
Yeah,
you really think about it.
yeah.
And
Well,
so I'm like,
Catholics weren't allowed to immigrate here for quite a while.
yeah, I mean like there was like some in Maryland and then like a
Hmm.
few in like I think Charleston and some of the other big cities, but like they were never the majority anywhere. And I mean, I think by the time of the American Revolution, we think of Maryland as like the Catholic colony, but I think like by the time of the Revolution, it was majority Protestant.
Yeah,
Like there was not a lot of Catholics here. Yeah, they weren't allowed to immigrate. I think I know in Britain, I don't think America was the same way, but I know in Britain, it wasn't until like after World War One where like Catholics could actually be allowed to serve in Parliament.
after
Um,
World War One.
yeah, then they changed.
Wow,
Yeah, then they changed the law.
interesting.
And then, well, yeah, because in Britain, if you were Catholic, you were a second class citizen.
Yeah.
And then in America, like in a lot of ways, you were too. Like I don't think it was as harsh as Britain, but like for example, if you were Catholic and like different states had different like tax laws with in terms of churches. So like there wasn't a national church and there never has been, but certain states had like the official state church.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, so like if you lived in a state that was like that,
Which state would be an
I
example?
think North Carolina was like that.
Really?
Yeah, I
Interesting.
think so. So it's like if you were Catholic living in one of those states, like you had to pay tithe to like a church that was against you.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like similar to like the like what's that Islamic tax?
The jizya.
The jizya, yeah, it's similar to that. I don't think it was nearly as harsh, but still. Um, yeah. But so it's just like when you really think of like America, and especially like on the world stage, from like a cultural perspective and like a sort of I don't know, like what have we added to the world? Obviously, we've added tons to the world, right? Because I think in terms of innovation and like pioneering and all that stuff, I mean, I think yeah, in that case, America is great.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, I think now's a good time to talk about like as a Catholic, like some of the things that America does that we think are good. And I think a big one is that America is, one of the most charitable countries in the world.
well,
And
yes, that's
and
true.
uh America has sent a lot of Christian missionaries. Yes, they weren't, Catholic missionaries, but it's better that people are at least Christian and getting baptized. It's like most people we live in a Protestant country, so it's like we have a little bit of like the brotherhood there, but then not really.
Yeah, I
It's kind of
mean,
like the adopted brother where it's like yeah, like you're our brother. Like I think technically if you are baptized, you're part of the church, but like
You are part of
it's
the
a different
church.
level.
Yeah, like
And
it's formal versus it's formally versus not formally being part of the
yeah, and
church.
you
Yeah.
know, like so it's like when you talk with average Americans, because your average American, like they're not going to be like
Well,
an
another thing.
atheist, but they'll probably
Yeah.
be like, I'm Protestant, but like I don't really go to church. And the thing with that is, it's like you know, a lot of people here still respect Jesus. It's just they don't respect the Catholic Church.
Well, yeah, and then also, if you're European and you're listening to this, I must let you know that like this whole concept of like America being more religious, that's not really true. I mean, it's kind of true in the sense that I think like the Americans are more likely to go to church every Sunday,
Well, I think
but
Americans are probably more likely to believe in God, but
okay,
because most people I've talked to in America believe in God.
yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean they go to church. I know a lot of people who believe in God, but they don't go to church.
Well, yeah, I think that's definitely the case with like working class,
Hmm.
because like going to church eventually got associated with like that's like what the elites do. You
Yeah.
know, I don't need to listen to no mean, evil, ugly corporate
Get dressed up in
Republican.
a suit, don't
Yes,
work that day and go to church and sit in mass for an hour. Like no working class Americans are like you it's so weird because 500 years ago these people that we interact with, they'd be going to mass with us.
well, you gotta
No, but now
remember.
but now it's so weird that they're so close to Catholicism in terms of proximity. Like there's Catholics everywhere, there's Catholic churches, and these people know
Yeah,
nothing. You know what's crazy?
yeah.
I grew up in Pennsylvania and I did not know what the rosary was really until I was 21. I did not know the Our Father prayer, and my family were Protestants.
Yeah.
And no one ever told me about all these things that are just a regular occurrence in Catholic culture. Like it's really strange how far removed your average American is removed from like Catholicism. Because like
Yeah.
I think in Europe, even if they're an atheist, like you still like understand, like you're still closer in
Well,
proximity.
yeah,
But
and
like
even
like
if
like
you're
it's your ancestral culture, but here is different. It's weird how you could have like a Catholic church down the street, and there's maybe you live in a small town. Let's say there's 100 Catholics in your town, and you're never taught about Catho- Catholicism at all. I think that
well,
has to do with the school system because
well, that's definitely part of it. Well, because that's
the school system literally says nothing about it.
well, that's why there's like the psyop of like the Catholic school. Oh, it's the word. Oh, like because it's just trying to show like the isn't the public school better when
Yeah.
it's really not. But like I think like Europeans like even if they don't necessarily like go to church or like really think about it and like about God all the time, like their actual like worldview and like their lifestyle is like
Yeah.
much more like closer to what we do and like
Yeah.
how we live our
Yeah, like
lives, you
like a
know?
secular Italian probably lives his life similar to like
Well, yeah, and a
an
lot,
American
yeah.
Catholic because Italy is still
Well, I mean,
culturally,
well, depending on what type of American Catholic, because that's another kind of thing I want to talk about.
yeah.
Because there's the kind of like there's more or less two kinds of Catholic Americans. The sort of there's the Catholics in America who think of themselves as just like Americans who happen to be Catholic,
Yeah.
and then there's people who like are actually like no,
It's
like
just another denomination.
right, like I don't see no difference.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like I work in a blue collar setting, and one of my coworkers, he's Catholic, but like he constantly is like talking about he's very 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 nationalistic, very patriotic, and he's constantly talking about like
which like we must clarify, guys. Like if you love America and you like love wearing all the American stuff and you're really patriotic, like that's cool, man.
that's
Like
cool. Like I
we're not trying to think like we look down upon you.
no no
We
no
don't.
no no, but
We're
like
just talking about
you know
our personal
he's
opinions.
talking about like how we gotta fight the Iranians and we gotta do this and we gotta get all the
Yeah.
oil and we gotta like he's very very like you know like his mindset is like the founding fathers are like the greatest men to ever exist. And
When you actually
and
like learn
and
about
and
yes,
then I ask him, I'm like, when was the last time you prayed the rosary? He's like, man, that was like 3 years ago. And I'm so are you Catholic? Well, you gotta remember, like some people, they, they're Catholic in the sense of it's like their identity, but they're not practicing. And there's a
yeah,
lot of
like well,
American,
that's
a
nominal
lot of the
Catholicism. Yeah.
American Catholics are like that, where it's just, yeah, man, I'm Catholic. Like a lot of a lot of people I work with, like a lot of them are ancestrally Catholic, and they'll go to Easter mass and Christmas, but like they won't. They're very like America, like
Well, yeah,
it's
because I think
that when
that's
they
part
like
of like
their
yeah,
identity is not being Catholic, their identity is being American.
it's
For
American
me,
first. Yeah,
and I know for you, we're Catholics first and then Americans.
yeah, no, and that's the other thing because it's just like if we were from a country that was like actually ancestrally Catholic, like I would be the most like flag waving national anthem singing guy ever.
Yeah,
Like
like if
if I was from
you're
like Italy,
Austrian or
well, yeah, because
Italian
like
or
a lot of the
even
actual
German.
well, yeah, because a lot of the patriotism and like the national pride in those countries is intertwined with the Catholicism.
Yeah.
So like I would just be like because like sometimes I mean obviously I'm able to cope with it now because like I'm not just sitting here whining but like just like sometimes like I've just been like salivating of like man like why can't I be like Austrian or why can't I be Italian or
Yeah.
something you know
But
like
I had a class.
and I know guys and I must like sorry before you said that I know guys like you could tell me to just like, oh well, you're not that, and it's like, yeah, I know, and I know I'm not. But what you guys have to remember is I know that God wants us to be born when we're born. He wants us to be born where we're born, and then he wants us to be born into the family that we're born with, right? And
Yeah.
we can't change that,
Yeah.
right? But it's still an interesting thing to think about.
But I had a class at the church recently, and the priest, he's talking about like as a Catholic, like you shouldn't really be a nationalist, but you can be a patriot. Because he was saying like
Well, yeah, patriot's different than
yeah,
a
because he was like saying
nationalist.
like a
Yeah,
nationalist is someone who looks down on other
like you
countries,
view
but a
your
patriot
yeah.
is like you're proud of your country because that's where you're from. And he's like as a Catholic, like you can be patriotic because like America's still the country that like you originate from.
Well, yeah, I mean, like Catholicism, especially in this area in Northern Virginia and like Southern Maryland, we have a long history of Catholicism actually going back to before like before the Revolution.
Hmm.
And so yeah, because like most of the like the big old Catholic families here are like descended from like literally two families. It's the Carrolls and the Barons, right? Like the founder of Christendom College out in Front Royal,
Hmm.
Warren Carroll, he's descended from Charles Carroll.
Oh, is that where Warrington gets his name from? Oh, I think Warrington actually gets his name
No, I think
from
Warrenton's different.
a Confederate general.
Well, yeah, so Warren Carroll, the founder of Christendom College in Front Royal, Virginia, was he's descended from Charles Carroll,
Hmm.
who was one of the delegates from Maryland. He was the one Catholic who signed the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so he like if out of any if any Catholic's gonna be patriotic, be proud where he's from, it's gonna be him. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Whereas just like part of my family has been here for a really long time, and then another part has been in the present day United States for like hundreds of years, but that's because they were in New France,
Yeah.
right? So like we weren't always part of America. And then the other part of my family are like Ellis Island Americans because they immigrated from Eastern Europe to through Ellis Island and in New York and all that, right? But like yeah, so it's just like and also like the whole thing about like oh America has no culture. I mean like
Yeah.
there is some truth to that too. I mean like and the culture we do have, I mean, there is good culture here, right? And it's like, I'm not saying there's like nothing to be proud about, because like obviously there's a lot of cool stuff about American culture. Like we got some cool music, like the blues
Yeah.
and the
But
bluegrass and all that.
let's talk about like
But
some of the things that like as Catholics irritate us about like the
Oh, like which
entity of America. So
well, and
like
also like
kind of like the
conservatism too,
huh?
and also like conservatism too.
Yeah, but
Like
let's talk
the
about
whole
like
conservative
like
movement. Yeah.
let's talk about like kind of the corporate greed and all that
Yes.
like people like you know Bill Gates or just like like America is kind of like how would you say like it's very financially focused here. Everything's about money here.
Yeah, because that goes back to the Protestant work ethic of like maximizing profit and just like saving everything and not spending a lot.
Hmm.
So it's like this weird, like kind of like it's kind of like a perverted, like how would you say? It's kind of like a perverted like sense of like that's how they derive their grace. Is like they
Hmm.
think it's like a spiritual good to like
Yeah,
work all the
yeah
time.
they
Yeah.
think that
In and
like
of itself.
they
Yeah.
think that it's a virtue to be like hardworking.
Well, it is.
It is, but like to the point to where like that's all that you do.
That's all that you do. Yeah, and it's like you go above and beyond for like when you really think about it, like what are you really accomplishing? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
especially nowadays.
Yes, especially nowadays. But like the other thing is that just like America, like I said, it's founded on like these really just cringe and evil Masonic principles.
Yeah.
And not all, because I know not all the founding fathers were Masons, but a lot of them were. But like the sort of worldview and like in the Declaration of Independence and like just the spirit of America, it's just like it's just it's just
Uber rational,
yeah, like it's just
uber individualistic.
and like this vague notion of God, but it's not
Yeah,
really
like well, you
kind of
gotta remember
yeah.
like a lot of the founding fathers were deists.
Well, yeah, because in deism, like it inevitably lead like most of the deists later in history just kind of eventually toss God out of the picture,
Yeah,
right? Because
If God's not active in your life at all,
then like why does it
why
matter?
or he doesn't exist.
Well, right, exactly. And so um
And that's kind of the spirit that a lot of people have, where
it
they're
is.
like, ah, he's real, but like I don't really interact with him at all, and it's just as like a Catholic, you well, as a practicing Catholic, you go to mass every Sunday and you take communion and you go to confession and the Catholic life, you know, because like you go to church multiple times a week where there's chapel, there's confession, there's feast days, there's mass, there's parties, there's high masses and
Yeah,
low
there's
masses,
fasts and
and
feasts. There's just you
and
get
it's
there's
just a
something for everybody,
yeah, and there's
you
just
know?
this and there's all these different organizations and groups. It's just like it's part like if you're practicing Catholic, like it is a part of your life every single day. And for most Americans, it's just not even on the radar.
Well, yeah, because that's when I sit down and think, I'm like, what do I really have in common with like my average fellow countryman?
Yeah,
You know,
that's another thing we should
because
talk
that's
about.
another thing where I'm like, when I really think about like trying to think about what we have in common, it's like my average like stereotypical like uber patriotic like flag waving American is probably going to be anti-Catholic.
Hmm.
Is more often than not kind of a degenerate. Uh,
Very
yeah,
individualistic,
very individualistic,
believes in hardworking and bombing the terrorists and all that.
and it's also another important part is that they're like extremely libertarian,
Yeah,
where it's the sort of like right wing on economics, but left wing on social policy, right?
yeah.
And it's just like, well, first of all, no, neither the right wing, because people get it so confused, like that we're in favor of like right wing economics. Like, no, like all I care about is just like the GAY stuff and like the unaliving the babies, right?
Yeah,
Because that is the most important thing to me.
yeah,
Whatever's going on with taxes or whatever bullshit, that's completely secondary,
yeah.
right? So if my taxes are higher, which like yeah, that sucks, but if that means that we can get rid of the GAY stuff and like unaliving babies, like that, I would be in favor of that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
and
Like,
also like American culture is very anti family.
yeah, no, and it
And we
also
have, high divorce. I mean, yes, it's true. Like in Europe, it's like that too. But like,
no, but
it's
the
just like
abortion laws, like, yeah,
as a practicing Catholic, like when you get married, you don't get divorced,
yeah, you don't get
and that's
divorced,
just a very common thing
no
here.
contraception, yeah,
Yeah, like no contraception. You don't get a divorce. Um, you don't, engage in having sex with yourself. You just that's not part of you know being a Catholic. Like that's not like part of our what is like allowed. And that's not to say like, oh, if you do those things you're condemned. It's just those just things aren't good for you. And like your average American's like, yeah, yeah, go ahead. And like you just gotta do that, you gotta have sex before you get married, make sure you have a condom, make sure, like, oh, and if you have if your wife gets pregnant, yeah, just get rid of the baby. Like it's nothing. It's just
well, yeah,
it just
it's kind of like this like apathy that like when you actually like,
apathy to human life, apathy to
yes,
religion,
to
apathy to
authority,
authority. Yeah, it's very apathetic.
it's apathy or like you're against it,
There's
like
no
it's just,
like no one in America is gonna get crucified for their beliefs.
yeah.
Like nobody's gonna
Well,
die
yeah,
for
because
their
that's why it's
beliefs.
just the land of like the milk toast,
Yeah.
like like, and I mean, it's that, but then it's at the same time it's bizarre. It's like also the land of the extremes,
Yeah.
of like you'll have like the big like Ronnie Coleman or like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or you'll have like the most like obese
Yeah.
and we're not trying to make fun of people like that,
Hmm.
but because that's a sad, you know, thing that's going
Yeah.
on. But like that's the other thing is just like when you actually like look around, especially in like suburban and urban America, like it's like literally like has like no soul. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
Because like when you look at like
it's
just
cookie
and I
cutter. It's
it's
just
it's
I
cookie
mean,
cutter
to be
copy and
fair,
paste.
a lot of that is from post World War II, we just had the baby boom and we had to
Well,
create all these
that's right.
houses.
Yeah.
And like, but the problem is just in our society is also a lot younger, and the population just expanded so quickly that we had to do that. But at the same time, it's
Well,
like
yeah, no, and
there's
also
not
yeah,
the historic cities here are really small. They're really, and the problem is
and
now is
not all the historic cities, even like most of the cities, just like copy and paste, just like
and then the
skyscrapers.
thing
Like
is, and then even in the historical side of the city, it's not really relaxing and it's full filled. Another big thing about,
and it's like overly touristy
yeah, and
and
another thing about Catholicism, Sunday is for rest. You get to relax.
well, yeah, and also
That's not a part of being American.
exactly, yeah,
My coworker, he's from, Nicaragua.
right.
And in Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, all those countries, people, they're poor, but like they relax, they spend time with their family. They, they'll sit outside for hours and just,
Just be with
eat
people.
food and hang out. America, we don't
Like,
do
who
that.
cares if you're wasting time? Like, sometimes it's okay to just waste
Yeah,
time.
and like here,
That's something people really don't want to come to
yeah,
grips
and
with.
here in America,
It's
it's
okay to
just
just waste time
here in
sometimes,
America, it's just man, you gotta wake up, get on your grind, 5 o'clock a.m. Drive. Another thing, drive 30, 40. Some of my
Well,
coworkers
yeah,
drive
it's
an hour
just,
and a half one way to go to work. It's like they're just like that's just what you got to do. And the thing is, none of these people are
yeah.
thinking like I've had a lot of these conversations with my dad, and like people in this country, they have a pride of like, man, it was so hard for me. And then if you come to them with a hardship, it's like you just gotta do it, man. They never think about how other countries are. We're like
Yeah, no, that's what I was gonna say.
Italy,
Like,
Spain,
like our
France.
fellow
Those
countrymen,
people they don't commute an hour to go to work, and then
and even if you do, that'll be on like a train,
And the thing is, it's like they just think like, man, that's how it is. It's not going to be able to change. It's like yes, it can change. Like, and what I like is that now I'm exposed to Catholic people. Like I witness more of that in my life, and it's just like
Yeah.
these people are actually like enjoying their lives, and they're not part of I get that we have to make money and I get the economy is bad, but like, man, I mean,
Well, also, I
and
mean, they only
an hour and a half to you know how many people I work with that drive an hour and a half one way to go to work, and then I tell them about been doing that for 30 years, dude. Think about that.
well, yeah, exactly.
That is the system that America has created. Like, what other country do people really do that? I mean, probably Canada,
Australia,
Australia,
yeah,
but
it's
like,
just Anglosphere.
but even in Britain, people don't do that.
Oh, I think in parts of Britain they do, because like a lot of Britain's like really suburban and shit,
Yeah,
and like
it's
just
just
cookie cutter, like
yeah, it's just insane. Like how it's set up. It's not. And another thing is American culture is just not designed for like Catholicism. 'Cause, you know, the thing is like, it's like I want to go to, mass in the mornings. It's just most people they're waking up way too early to go to mass, and it's like and mass is at 8 a.m. You know, it's that's kind of early if you really think about it for a church service, 8 a.m. And it's like I just wish I could go. And it's just what kind most jobs you can't do that. You can't go to mass in the morning, and you can't.
yeah, even if it's at 7, that's too early for
Too
people to
and
go.
it's too
Yeah.
early for a lot of people, because they have to drive an hour to work, and and it's just crazy. It's just
Well, I mean, it's just a rat race. I mean, you've heard that expression a lot.
yeah,
And
it's
and
just
then
it's
one,
kind of sad, like how people here, um, the spiritual is really, even in my own life, being in America, like really, you have to think about money all the time. You have to think about all the different bills you have to pay.
it's just
You have to
sink or
think,
swim,
and
you know? Yeah.
all this paperwork you have to do, and it's just like, I often put, I'm I mean, I'm more religious than most people in the country. I'm not the most religious person, but
All right.
like it's hard to make time for that in this country. And it's just, if I was in Italy, if I was in, even in the Philippines or in Mexico, I feel like the culture is just more conducive to living your day-to-day life as a Catholic.
Well, yeah, and there's also better and sort of like there's better developed and like nicer community structures and webs that
Hmm.
like because like the reason that like there's the jokes about like white people have no culture is just because like this sort of like atomized like individualistic like suburbs where like they only can like people can only perceive of family now as like just man woman and then like one maybe two kids,
Yeah.
right? Like that's a very like Anglo way of like thinking of
Hmm.
family where it's like you live just like in this house in this like suburban lot.
Yeah, and your parents, the grandkids of your children will live, in a different state.
Yeah, live in a different state and like you don't live by like your aunt and uncle or your grandparents or your or maybe not
You
even your
don't have
cousins.
roots.
Well, yeah, exactly, because like and you're just next to your neighbors who like you probably don't even know and haven't even talked to.
I mean,
And then
to be fair, like where we live in Northern Virginia, that is definitely the case. Not so much in other parts of the country,
no, I mean
but
especially where I grew up in
a lot of the
uptown New
Eastern
Orleans,
Seaboard
like
is like that, though.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
think about how many people do you know in Northern Virginia that have lived there their whole life. I spent half my life in Pennsylvania. I was born in North Carolina. I'm from a different place. You're from a different place.
I am,
Most
yeah.
of the people that we know that are in Northern Virginia are from somewhere else. And that's also, and the thing is, in America, it's so big. You can move across a continent and be in the same country.
Yeah. No, that's
And
the other
then when
thing,
you
and
do
that's
that, you're not, it's much, the thing is, people are like, yeah, we can always fly. It's like, that's not,
no, but
you can
also
always
like
FaceTime. It's like,
yeah.
no, like it's kind of like part of your family connection dies.
Well, yeah, exactly, and that's just why like this
And
whole
think about why do people move across country for a better job?
yeah.
And because that's really what's important in America is, you gotta get a better job. You gotta focus on your career. You gotta, pay all these bills. You gotta make sure your credit score is high. You gotta go buy a house. You gotta do this. You gotta do this. You gotta do this. And it's not, hey, let's sit down and let's go to mass, or
Go to the coffee shop
let's
or
go to a
yeah.
coffee shop, let's go read a book, let's go. It's none of that. It's just you gotta work, you gotta work, you gotta work. And I get it, like, the economy's tough and that's a normal thing, and
Yeah.
you gotta work for
The only reason it's like
fine.
that is because there's people and like this rampant like this like absurd like gross consumerism where we have to like
Mhm.
pay all this shit off in the back end, like and like all this stuff, like because kind of like what Luke Smith said, like the more that technology improves, like the higher the cost of living will go up because like we have to pay for like we don't need cars when you really think about it.
Yeah,
Like that's a big like drainer of your wallet because not only do you have to pay for the actual car, you have to pay for the maintenance. You have to pay to clean it. You have to pay for the gas, and then you
yeah,
have to pay the taxes that
yeah,
goes into
yeah,
maintaining the
yeah,
roads. Like
yeah. Like my car is paid off, and I pay an extra 5 grand every year just to, you know, oil changes and that's not even including gas. Including gas, it's maybe 7,000.
yeah, no,
Just
and it's
the
like they
something breaks in your car. Like I just had a car accident. I had insurance, but I still paid $1,000, and then the windshield breaks, and then all these things. It's just like, and these other countries, you just take the train, and these,
you just walk.
yeah,
I mean, because
or you
it's
take a what do they call it, tuk tuk?
yeah, exactly. When then people would be like, "Oh, well, it's just because like I needed to get to where I need to go," and it's like, well, yeah, it's because they designed where you need to get to go to be freaking 30 minutes away. Like it doesn't have to be like that because, like, because a lot of like this sort of like kind of coquettification of like Europe and like European stuff kind of comes from like that sort of like we just like it because it's not like evil backwards soulless America, which is kind of true. But like what people don't understand is that like well, first of all, Europe is just so much older,
Yeah,
and they have a lot just deeper rooted traditions and histories and cultures. But also most of like the great European cities, right? And almost any city for that matter back in the day, you would just build your cathedral and then the city would just
you
grow
build
out
your
of
town
that.
around it.
Right. So that's why like a lot of this the streets in Europe, like it's not a grid. It's just kind of it's like random, it's like wherever, And that just that way, it's just like that organic, like
Hmm.
real kind of like culture that you see over there. And like it's just that's like why like you like when you go to Europe, and I mean both you and I have been there, it's not just us having this sort of vicarious experience talking to people online and looking at pictures. Like when I was like in Europe, it's just like it just everything just feels so much more beautiful,
Yeah,
and
like
like when
I,
you're more surrounded with beautiful things, like there's going to be more beauty on the inside. You know what
the
I
thing
mean?
is with like I went to the Netherlands, and there's not this big giant Walmart parking lot. You just don't really see that there.
Yeah, you don't.
I mean, you'll see like a, modernist office building, but then right next to that, it's like literally the most beautiful church you'll ever see.
Yeah,
But it's
exactly.
just crazy, you just Walmart parking lots. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not even really against that. It's just like it's weird how it's like integrated into like the city.
Well, it's
Because you
just
know what I
so
mean?
much.
It's not
Yeah.
separate.
Well,
Because
it's like
it's like
yeah,
everything's like so like compartmentalized. Like for example, the neighborhood I live in, literally, you've seen where I live.
yeah,
Literally, the most cookie cutter American house. Each house is an individual. Each house is about 20 feet apart.
and
They're
nobody knows
relatively
anybody that
relatively
lives
big
next to
house.
them.
You don't know either one of your neighbors. You have a little backyard fence. In Europe or pretty much everywhere else in the world, there'd be a deli in the neighborhood, or there'd be a little park, or there'd be. I mean, there's some parks here in America, but like there'd be a deli, or there'd be a little church, or there'd be this or that. There's nothing. It's just a soulless. It's not even really that ugly, especially in the springtime because you know, they put nice, landscaping and
Yeah,
trees and stuff.
it's
But
not
it's
ugly.
not.
It's just
It's
it's just functional.
Yeah,
You know
it's
what I
like
mean?
if you
Yeah,
want to
like
go do something with your family, you go somewhere else. And
yeah,
that's
exactly.
not. in Catholic societies, that's just not really. It's not what they do. They're more personal. They're more, oh, let's spend time with my family. Like I want to spend time with my family. I
Well,
want
like not even every like because there's really like some of the bigger and like older American cities you can kind of still live that lifestyle like New York and like
Philly,
Philly, New
Chicago.
Orleans, yeah, like because you don't necessarily need to own a car if you like live in those cities. Um, yeah, but yeah, I guess like there's certain things like on the American world stage, like in terms of like our culture, where I like sometimes like it makes me become like, man, like I like feel like American in that
Yeah, like
moment.
World War II is a good example of that.
And then,
No, no, no. I mean like,
oh, like liberating Auschwitz.
yeah, like,
That feels
yeah,
that
like,
very proud, yeah.
you know, um,
That and like the revolution, I don't really give a shit about because it's like
American Revolution.
no, not at
Yeah,
all.
I mean, the thing is, like, America, we, I was actually watching a video of what Sargon of Akkad.
Sargon of Akkad, yeah.
Yeah, he was saying that, in England, he lives in England and he came to visit America and he said that American people are very polite and they're very nice and he said that people are more like willing to like talk to you personally directly. And that's actually a thing I've
Hmm,
heard from a lot of people is that Americans are actually pretty friendly.
really?
Yeah, like we're
I think
not we're
yeah.
not really even though we're like really like hardworking and kind of the Germanic mindset, we're actually relatively like friendly, open people.
Well, I think a lot of that comes from like just people not wanting to be perceived as like being a hick
Mm.
who's like, oh, I'm not racist. You know, some of
Well, I
it's
mean,
rooted
even
in
even
that. You know,
Hicks. I mean, even like this whole Southern hospitality.
no, I
America.
know. I'm just thinking of how these like other
Yeah,
people think. I'm not talking about my
yeah, but
life. Like,
like we do give a lot of money to other countries, and sometimes there's strings. Well, probably most of the time there's strings attached, but like how many like missionaries we sent to Africa? How
and
many like
food.
how much food we send to Africa? Like I think America is the most generous country in the world, and
But then on the flip side, because America is it's just it's the land of extremes. Like
we're all well,
we're
like
also kind of the most evil. Like it's just so weird. Like it's just this because that's what kind
well,
of
we'll wage a war in a landlocked country for 20 years and literally just spend so much money on that. And the crazy part is like we killed the guy who did 9/11, but we were just in this war. And the
but
thing
we
is
kind of started that the
and the
whole
thing
thing in the
is
first
and
place.
the,
Yeah.
oh, another thing that we do that is not we try to impose our values onto other people like on a global scale. Like we
Especially, yeah.
tried to make Afghanistan into America. Like that's not going to work.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you could still see this in today with like the whole sort of like way that America like subverts like Latin America and is like literally like this sort of contrived like growth of Protestantism
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. So like I just think to myself and I'm like, how am I supposed to be proud of my country when my country literally actively tries to subvert my religion in other
Yeah.
countries? You know
Oh,
what I
and
mean?
yeah,
Like,
a really sad thing that I see is, in America, there's a lot of immigrants and a lot of these people are from Catholic countries,
yeah.
and they have like, man, I want to be American and I want to do all the American things. It's like, dude, my family's been American for since the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, it did it af it may be fun, when at first, but after a while, it kind of eats away at your soul. Like, I'm real. Like my brother and I are really the only religious people in my entire family,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's just every family's different, but like that's kind of very true for a lot of American families, and it's like seeing these Hispanic people or Filipinos or come to America and their ancestry is Catholic and though especially in their country like they believe it and when they come here they just kind of lose it and I'm like please man like you have a gift you have a gift like I wasn't born into Catholicism I am on my way to becoming Catholic and I want to
Yeah.
say like my family is quintessential American, and it's not good for your soul. It's really not good for your soul. And if you are someone who, you are ancestrally Catholic and you come to America and you're thinking, man, I want to be, part of the American culture. It's like, be Catholic first, please. Like,
Well, yeah, because I think just like being American, and this is all religions, I think, no matter what kind of religion or ethnicity you are in America, like America is just really conducive to making you like take things for granted, you know?
yeah.
Just because like
There's also a lot of distraction.
there's a lot of distraction. Well, it's like
It's just
because
it's so
everything,
busy here.
well, because there's no regard for beauty or tradition. Everything has to be like functional. And the benefits of it being functional is just things are just convenient, you know? So
Hmm.
like I think everything is just really nice and it runs well. But it's like at what cost, you know?
Yeah.
Like so that everything can just like look bland outside. Like I don't know. And it's just like I mean, I think in terms of like our culture, I mean, obviously we have a unique uh, way of speaking English that is
Hmm.
unique to us. We have an interesting and kind of peculiar sports tradition in America that I
Yeah.
think is really interesting. Um, like I love like the marching bands and the fight
Mm.
songs and the football and whatnot. That's kind of interesting. And obviously our university system is kind of unique and different than other countries. We have some really good poetry, right? Like from Edgar Allan Poe. Like that's a really good icon for America and whatnot. Um, yeah. So I guess when asking like to answer the question from the beginning of the video, am I proud to be American? I answer it in this way. I am not proud, but I am thankful to
Yeah.
be American. Like I am not necessarily like I'm not like I said, I'm not proud of kind of WASP Anglo like culture and like Freemasonic Enlightenment stuff because that's what our country is unfortunately founded upon. But like that doesn't mean that things here aren't nice and you can still make a good life here even as a Catholic, despite all of the long history of anti-Catholicism here. And what are your closing thoughts?
Um, if in some ways I'm proud to be an American, but in the sense that like this is my home. I am, proud of, some of the achievements America has, uh how do you say, like some of the achievements like we've made, and we are a generous country, and most Americans are at least like polite and friendly, and this is my home. This is where I grew up. But I just, I don't really have a common connection to like, at least intellectually or spiritually, to like the common American. And it's just I think that, you know, over time, I think Americans might start coming to Catholicism because it kind of fills a lot of the spiritual gaps that American culture has, and that's that's all I that's the what I have to say.
Yeah. Oh yeah, what was it that you said? Like, if anyone has the right to say America is bullshit, it's you.
Yeah, I mean, my family's been here since the beginning. Um, my
A lot of
family,
military history, right?
yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
military history. My grandfather, he served in Vietnam, and he got screwed over from the chemicals, and he didn't get
Oh,
his yeah
really?
he didn't
Jeez.
get his that's actually might be the reason why he died. And he got screwed over for the retirement. And my great grandfather was one of the Filthy 13, and he helped liberate concentration camps, like one of the very few Americans to actually do that.
Yeah, and I have family
And
members
I
of
know
those,
I
you
had
know?
fet all my family members in the Civil War were on the Confederate side. My family's from North Carolina, but my family has been American for since the beginning. and
This is 1600s, right?
and my
Yeah.
and I wouldn't say America's bullshit, but I will say like there's things here that are really put you down in the dirt.
Well, yeah, and it's just kind of like there is this sort of smoke and mirrors of like the like
It's
this
so
sort
great
of
to live here, but everybody's
like
stressed
it's
out.
right, or like it's like we're the greatest country in the world, and if you think otherwise, and like oh you're like oh
You're a
you're
traitor.
yeah you're an enemy of the state. Go
Yeah.
live in France, you know.
Yeah, there's this notion, it's like,
Yeah,
you either love it or you leave it. It's like, why don't we just make it better for everyone?
right.
So, like, why are you settling for misery? Love it or leave it?
Yeah,
No,
right.
just make it better.
Yeah, like who
It's
cares? Like
not a bad thing to encourage our culture to relax, to not, have to wake up 5 a.m., drive 1.5 hours to go to work, just one way. You either love it or leave it. Like, no, like, how about we stay here and work together and actually try to make it better for everyone? And
well, yeah,
that's all I
exactly.
have to say.
Yeah, I think we tried to flesh out the ideas as best as we could. I think we could have gone because Robert and I have had countless conversations of just like you know, um, like talking about this subject. And I guess like the very last thing that I want to talk about, and it's this will probably can tie into like another episode we might do, is that like this kind of more relates to being a native English speaker. Is what's kind of bummy about that? It's like I'm not saying it has to be, but it really can be a lot of the times, and you can't really help it sometimes. Is because I think the English language can be beautiful and has a lot of cool literature written in it. Um, and England obviously has a really cool history, but like, because like when you speak a language, in a sense, you're sort of part of a club, and there's this kind of cool sense of like exclusivity, almost, right? Like right. I mean, that's what like ethnos means, right? Like
Hmm.
tribe, right? And the mark of the tribe is the language, right? And so like when everyone can just speak your language, then like if everyone's part of the club, then like being the part of the club isn't even really that special anymore. So I think that's a big reason actually why Americans just kind of feel like just kind of like demoralized and can't find anything to get behind, But yeah, I appreciate you doing this podcast with me, man. I hope it gets a lot of the.
All right, thank you, man.
Oh yeah. See y'all in the next one.